Okay, Bandersnatch spoiler alert. If you haven't interacted and watched the experience that is Bandersnatch, you probably don't want to watch this video. Full disclosure, I absolutely I hated it, okay? I maybe hated it strong. I give it a 4.5 out of 10 because I sat through a decent amount of it before finally giving up and saying, yeah, I'm just done with this. So, I'm interested in the story, which there wasn't one. I liked the actors, I liked the portrayal, there were some interesting things there, but it's just nonsense. The whole thing was just trash, all right? So now that I've given you that warning, let's talk about this article. New York Times, Black Mirror gives power to the people. Black Mirror, the speculative fiction series that encouraged people to be wary of new technology, is now hoping they will embrace it. The Netflix show released just one episode on Friday in a narrative titled Bandersnatch, during which the viewer decides what will happen next. That's a lie. That is basically a lie. I think the way you should frame it, okay, again, we're gonna have spoilers. Bandersnatch has only like 3 choices. Okay, maybe that's not true, maybe there's like 10. Have you played Detroit Become Human? Because there are literally like thousands of outcomes. It's a ridiculous, like every scene has these crazy branches where all this different stuff can happen that impacts other parts of the game. Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it does. Bandersnatch, in my opinion, was like, maybe there are 4 actual choices. There's a bunch of different endings, but I'll tell you what. In the beginning of Bandersnatch, because it's a choose-your-own-adventure, you get a choice of whether or not to work for a company or not. And because the show, or whatever it is supposed to be about a dude developing games, I'd be like, well, of course we'll take the offer and develop it. So this guy goes, so, do you want to work for my company and develop your game or not? And you can accept or refuse. And I'm sitting with my brother and we're like, all right, take the job. He takes the job and the guy goes, great, we need to streamline this and get it to fit 64K. And then all of a sudden the guy goes, wrong choice, mate, and it's over. And I was like, what? How was I supposed to know it was the wrong choice? What does that have to do with the story? The story was the dude literally went in for a job interview to make a game. And so I said, okay, let's follow the story. And I said, that was the wrong choice. And it gets even worse because then it makes you go back, okay? It does a quick, it does like a quick synopsis of the choices you made up to that point. And then you get to make the choice again. And here's the best part. When the guy says, do you want the job, and you refuse, the main character is like, no, I don't know why I said that. And I'm like, okay. And then he ends up doing it anyway. He ends up working for the company anyway. It makes no sense. I was like, so there was no choice at all? But I guess that's the point of Bandersnatch, in that you're not really playing a choose-your-own-adventure other than you're literally supposed to be interacting with the character in the film, because basically what it's about is that the dude's being controlled by you, and there's at one point where it actually does start to get funny. You can tell him you're watching Netflix. The only problem is, that's not a story. I could do all of that in a video game and it'd be more fun. Detroit Become Human was a literal interactive movie experience, basically. This was not. They say, it begins like this. Should the teenage video game whiz Stefan have Sugar Puffs or Frosties for breakfast? Soon the choices become more consequential. Will Stefan work at a game company, tell his therapist about his mother, take his meds, and as so often in Black Mirror, reality is up for grabs. Except if you do work at the game company, it just ends immediately. So that's not a choice, okay? Basically what happens is, there are choices that just stop. There's one where it's like, pour tea on your computer or yell at your dad. And so I was like, okay, great, yeah, pour tea on your computer. How much you want to bet? It just stops the movie. That's exactly what happens. It just ends and goes, try again? And I'm like, that's not a choose your own adventure. That's a choose the right answer. Okay, so you pour tea on your computer and you go, hey, that was funny. And then it goes, go back, and then it restarts everything. What's the point of that? That's not a show. That's ridiculous. Viewers are voting on more than who lives and dies on one program. If the response to Bandersnatch is enthusiastic, Netflix will take it as a strong signal that the public is ready for interactive movies and television shows, and a new age of storytelling will commence. No. What is it, Quantic Dreams or whatever, who made Become Human? They've been around forever. It's not Become Human was the first thing they made. Choose your own adventure, interactive storytelling has been around forever. It's called a video game. All Bandersnatch is a bad video game. It's basically just a bunch of different scenes with minor choices, okay? Well, go play Final Fantasy. You get a million choices, and you can watch the story take place, and there's one story, right? This is why I like Skyrim and Fallout, and, Fallout's gotten pretty bad, because it's an open-world adventure where you have stories to follow, and you can do that, but you interact. All right, so when Become Human came out, I thought it was going to be more like, GTA or Fallout, like a third-person experience with a lot more interaction and core mechanics for, like attacking and stuff like that, but it's not. It's more of a movie. Yes, you move the character around. Yes, you walk. You choose where you go. It's more heavily interactive than, say, Black Mirror is. But what they're doing with Bandersnatch is basically, it's like, we've had games like Become Human where you influence the story as it progresses. All they've done is taken that concept and reduced down to like 4 legitimate choices, right? I think, I could be wrong because I gave up after a certain while. I watched, let me slow down. Basically, whenever you screw up, they show a scene where some guy on TV is reviewing your game Bandersnatch. If you choose to go to the game company, he goes, it seems like they just went on autopilot and the game's not that good. And I'm like, well, I didn't know that. That wasn't the choice I made. Then you continue. And then if you get to a point where you kill yourself or something, then the dude on the TV goes, it could have been a good game, but unfortunately the programmer killed himself tragically, and thus the game was finished by a different programmer, and it's just not that good. And then finally I did get to the complete ending where it shows the credits and all that stuff, where the guy's ranting and raving about how good the game is and it's so amazing, because I basically, you have the guy, the main character, kill his dad and then bury him, and then he finishes the game, and then the dude on the TV talks about how gruesome and sickening it was, but truly a fantastic game, and then the tragic story about how he was arrested after killing his dad, and then it shows a woman in the future. So I got to that point, and it asks you to go back and do one of the other branches. But the problem I had was, sometimes when you go back to these other branches, the choices are different, right? So there's one part where he's at his computer and he says, give me a sign. And you can choose to tell him about Netflix, or you can choose to show him a symbol. However, depending on which story arc you do, you might get totally different choices. I don't know how to get back to that. And I was like, dude, I really don't want to go back and do the same choices over again I just did, crossing my fingers and hoping that's what's going to trigger the different set of choices that didn't appear this time. Basically, at one scene, you'll have 2 choices. And then when you want to go back, the 2 choices you get are different. So I'm just like, I just give up. Because I think we watched the same thing over again 5 times. And I was like, dude, I get it. I can go play a game like Become Human and be happy about it. So they say, not that the company needs much encouragement, it has already developed software to help organize stories that have endless permutations. It has perfected, no it hasn't, or so it hopes, technical ability to present these tales on multiple platforms around the world simultaneously. And it's calling for producers to submit interactive proposals in genres from horror to romantic comedy, while hinting that it already has a few new shows in the works. Now this is where I want to stop and talk about my idea, okay? Because I pitched this idea when I was at Fusion 4 years ago, and I wanted to do a VR interactive documentary where you chose what subjects you want to explore within the documentary. Very similar to this. However, the way I presented it was, we basically want to make a video game that's extremely rudimentary. It's a series of cutscenes that you have a few choices at how you want to explore and learn. What they're doing here, and it's so frustrating to see the New York Times have no idea what they're talking about. They're acting like this is some great revelation. This is some fantastic new development in technology, when it isn't. In fact, the program doesn't even work on Apple TV, apparently. All they've done is created a garbage video game with no story. Let me say that too, Bandersnatch, I hate it. There's no story. There's literally no story. I don't know, if there is, I'll tell you what the story is. Once upon a time, a guy developed a video game. The end. That's literally it. That's literally the story. And you can talk about the weird things that happened in between, but none of it actually goes anywhere. In some parts, he's just dreaming, and it didn't really happen, and then he goes nuts and bites his fingernails. There's one part where it just goes nuts, and actually the only part of the whole thing I liked was the part where the therapist pulls out 2 retractable batons, and they start fighting, and then the kid, for some reason, kicks his dad in the nuts, and then that's literally in. Basically, it's not a story. It's meant to just be you clicking buttons to see cutscenes. That's how I experience it. And some choices make literally no sense. They say, the idea behind the interactive push is simple. Viewers will care more if they are complicit. No, I want a compelling story. I want to be able to go to my friends and say, dude, I watched this movie. It's so cool. There's one movie I just watched recently called, I think it was called Time Trap. That wasn't that, it's weird. It's an amazing concept. It could have been done better, but I thought it was awesome. And so I watched the movie, I sit back with my hands behind my head, and I'm just sitting there, kicking my feet, enjoying a nice little soda water, pomegranate lemonade, and I'm like, wow, that was entertaining. Guys, you should watch this. Bandersnatch, I'm like, I have no idea what I was staring at for that whole time. It made no sense, there was no story, and it's just, You know what the problem is? It's too meta. The whole thing references itself over and over again, and there literally is no story. Once upon a time, a dude went to develop a video game. For some reason, decided not to develop the video game, then started thinking he was going crazy, and then kills his dad or commits suicide, and the game is finished or not finished. The end. And so maybe that's the point. There isn't supposed to be a story. But if they want to act like you craft the story, okay, I'm going to go ahead and point to Become Human, because that game was a long development, lots of gameplay, and that is truly how something it should be done. But let me just make one more point while I rag on this, because someone said something really funny when I tweeted out that Bandersnatch was awful. They said, "Is Bandersnatch the new 3DO game that was published by Netflix?" At a media event late last month at Netflix headquarters in Los Gatos, California, the Black Mirror artistic team and Netflix executives previewed and discussed Bandersnatch. The mood was somewhat tentative. The track record of choose-your-own-adventure storytelling from Dragon's Lair video arcade game in 1983 to Onyx Project in 2006, suspense story on DVD, to Steven Soderbergh's Mosaic, a recent HBO miniseries that was also a phone app, falls short of overwhelming. Thank you. Dragon's Lair. Remember that? 3DO game, basically. That's what the point people are making. It's a cartoon, and you got to know which button to press to make the story progress, to carry on. Basically, I'm not super excited about what Netflix thinks they're like. They're just writing all this stuff about it. Well, I just talked for 10 minutes. What can I say? It was bad. They say, oh, okay, well, I'm assuming they're talking about this. No, they're talking about something else. Netflix is not making any predictions. Quite the contrary. In 5 to 10 years, we'll either say, wow, Black Mirror was a real turning point for interactive content, or we'll be going, that was another false start. False start. This is just... I'm assuming you guys play video games, right? I'm assuming you saw the great sensation that was Become Human. And you have these oblivious idiots who have no idea what they're talking about, muttering to themselves in their chairs about the future of interactivity, not realizing that video games have existed for a very long time and are quickly advancing faster than Netflix is. You know what? I'm done. I could rant on this too long. There's too much in this article. It's nonsense. Bandersnatch was terrible. Now I gotta go watch, what's that other movie? Bird Batch or something? I don't know. People like blindfolds. I'm gonna go watch that. Happy motherfucking New Year. I swore, just for you. I'll see you guys in 2019.